Gosh, you can't do that. Holy moly, why are you here again? Video. What do you mean, video? I made 2 this week. Video. No, not video. I made videos. I made a Late Night by Daylight episode, which takes a long time to edit, and I also made a Tail Attack compilation to help people learn how to play Xenomorph better. Video. Okay, so like those don't count, I guess? You'd think you'd like the ones where I edit more and not less, right? Video. Fine. I guess I'll give you the other half of the tier list I promised the last time you were here. How does that sound? Video. I hate that you guys like him so much. Hi guys, Brain here, and welcome to another video. I did end up deciding that I wanted to do the fun to play as tier list that I had teased doing when I did my fun to play against tier list. However, there were some changes that were coming through the pipeline that I was eager to see how they landed out, mostly with this goober right here, that being the Houndmaster. She got 2 hot fixes that put her in a pretty functional state. If you remember, when she first released, she was almost as bad as the twins in the twins release. So I kind of wanted to wait that out a little bit before I did this video, but now she's in a pretty stable state, or at least mostly. She's not more egregious than a lot of characters in the game that have a lot of bugs. No, I feel like it's finally a good time to do the fun to play as tier list. Also, it's the end of the year, so it's a good capstone for like everything that's happened in Dead by Daylight with all the new characters that have released. So yeah, let's not yap too much. Let's go ahead and get into it. Real quick, I do want to mention that this tier list is solely subjective, meaning that this is just based on what I feel playing these characters. Do they bring me joy? Do they not bring me joy? So it's subjective. So you can't be like, oh, well, they're in the wrong tier, blah, 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 because it's based on how I feel. So don't do that. If you're unfamiliar with how I do tier lists, I don't do strictly just S, A, B, C, D, and all that wonderful stuff. I like to have these little monikers under them. That way you know generally what fits into this category. S being favorite, A being generally a great time to play, B being okay. There's usually some sort of hang up that makes them not the most fun, but they're generally enjoyable. C is rather somebody else, meaning that if I have a daily for this or I get build requested to do this character on twitch.tv/TheMrHeadache, where you get a build for a sub. This is just one of those that, like, while I'm actively playing this character, I'm thinking of how I wish I could be someone else, whether that be for a shortcoming on their power or they're just not that enjoyable. And then D, which probably won't have a lot, hopefully, is actively disliked. Like, I actively do not play this character, and if I get build requested to play this character, I'm like, oh my gosh, please. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's see. Let's go ahead and grab, I don't know who this guy is. I'm used to having Naughty Bear in this slot, so I guess this is the Trapper. I'm being facetious, of course. Trapper's okay. I mean, like, when you get somebody at a trap, you get that snowball effect of like people running into your web and actually getting caught in the traps. It's actually super fun and super like rewarding and very thrilling when it does happen. But then obviously you have those games where you just have people just running around snapping your traps, and they're essentially just 115 man with machete, which does not feel good and feels terrible. And then suddenly you're like, oh, I see how I'm like a bottom 3 character in the game. So like they're okay. It kind of just depends on how the match goes. If you have one of those matches where you actually do get the snowball, it can be actually pretty fun, and like you get that evil cackle like you fell for it. But obviously you also have those matches where like you just get bodied, so it just depends. Let's see. Good old Wraith is also okay. I'll put Wraith above Trapper. Wraith is not deceptively. Wraith is just kind of simple. That's kind of his thing. He's a very like plug and play kind of killer. He has a very, very low skill floor, but still stands as like a B tier strength character, despite the fact that he's not too hard to learn and get good at. So it's a very easy like, oh, I have a daily for Wraith. That's fine. That's okay. I can just go do that. For that same reason, I don't find him too interesting because he is so two-dimensional. So he's not going to be a great time or favorite, but he's a fine plug and play character, you know? Billy used to be one of my mains. Billy was like the last character that I actively mained when I played before Xenomorph came out, rather. Would have put him in great time. Billy, I played Billy during the Overheat Billy era, which if you did that, you're entitled to financial compensation because he was one of the highest skill floor and highest skill ceiling characters in the game, despite only being like a B or C tier strength killer. That was pain. He used to be up here in favorites. Like I just used to love playing this character a lot. And I think that he got a lot of buffs and he got the overdrive mechanic and all that wonderful stuff. And it got him out of a really bad place. But now he's like a top 3, top 5 killer. And I feel like there's just some level of like taking candy from a baby that I just don't like about the character now. You'll notice that a lot of these characters that are like super high tier, I will not end up enjoying a great deal, but because it's just like, I feel like at a certain point my character is playing the game for me and it doesn't feel like me. I like performing cool skill shots. I like my victories to be as a result of a decision that I made that was really smart and intelligent, or just good execution on a hard to use power. But like the stronger characters get, it feels like there's less and less of that. And Billy has definitely kind of fallen somewhat into that zone of just like, am I doing well or am I just playing a really good character? And even if I'm getting like consistent 4Ks, if I don't feel like I'm doing a whole lot, it just doesn't feel rewarding. So yeah, I think I'm gonna put him firmly in like A tier. Nurse goes in actively dislike, and not for any reason of like strength or any sort of gripe or complaint. Nurse goes in D tier because I get motion sickness really easy. Like I'm one of those people that I go on, like if I go on long road trips, I get nauseous really quick. And Nurse definitely does that for me. Like there's something about like the blink where she like flies forward, the screen tears all around you, and then immediately you go into fatigue and your head starts bobbing around. Like it's nauseating. It feels like I'm actively in a car crash. It feels terrible to go through, and it makes me nauseous every time. I've at least been able to mitigate some of this. I've realized that if I at least look away from the screen while she's entering fatigue, I can kind of mitigate some of this, but like that's it. I mean, like, she's not somebody I can play regularly because she just makes me motion sick, which is really unfortunate because, like, she is a fun killer. I do find her fun. Like, there's another character on this list that we'll get to that I used to main. You'll see that I have a general like for these kind of characters in general. That, like, Nurse kind of fits into that zone a lot, but it's just, like, I can't play her. I literally can't play her because of the motion sickness, which sucks. Good old Mooko Myers. Mooko Myers is the reason I started playing Dead by Daylight, by the way. Big Halloween fan. I'm sure you can tell by the big tapestry in the background of the original VHS tape. The reason I started playing DBD is because I was like, oh, Myers is in this game? Oh, you can play as Michael Myers? That's so cool. Unfortunately, he was kind of just like so mechanically simple that I got over him over time, but it was still cool, the novelty of playing Myers. I think I'll put him at the top a great time, especially after his quality of life changes that make him feel a little bit more immersive and more faithful to the character. He's no longer a bottom 3 character in the game. He's like somewhere meandering in the C tier, or at least the top of D tier, which doesn't sound like a big move, but when you're a bottom 3 character, especially without Tombstone, it's like you'll take anything. You'll take anything at this point. But I don't know. I just love Myers. I love the character. He unfortunately is an M1 killer at the end of the day. So if you get people just playing safe, pre-dropping, doing all that wonderful stuff, it is going to be painful. It is going to be a terrible time, which is why he won't make it into favorites. But he's generally a great time. I do love Myers. I love the whole aesthetic of the character. I love the IP. Like it's just, I don't know. I just wish, ideally, I wish Myers had more to his kit. Like some sort of, like I've talked about this before, but Allranikin, the Wesker player, and I came up with a concept once a long time ago. There would be a paranoia system, quote unquote, like a paranoia system, where like there would be negative effects applied to survivors that are mostly stalked, like the ability to teleport to them, like a Pinhead teleport with the box or something like that. I think that would really tie the character together, and then he would become an S tier. But for now, he's in great time, which is not bad. Okay, Hag, this is gonna hurt you. Sorry, Gummy Peatrings, don't hurt me. I don't find Hag to be a good time. She's literally just like draw a triangle and camp from somewhere else on the map. I don't like camping in general. So a character whose kit is based around camping from not being physically there doesn't really appeal to me. I know some people are gonna be like, Chag, but Chag though. I'm gonna say this and it's gonna get me in trouble. I know. Chag is overrated. Oh my gosh, you're Hag, but instead of drawing traps, you're fast and you body block people. Why would I not just play a rush killer? If I want to go fast and do something flashy, why would I not just play like a rush killer, like Wesker or Billy? Like, why would I not just play those characters? Why am I playing Hag to do that? Chag is not as amazing as you think. You're just like playing one of the most unfun characters in the game with a somewhat fun build, so it just feels more crazy than it is when realistically it's not. I'm over, but Chag, bro, Chag's so cool. Chag is awesome, bro. Like, I don't, no. Overhyped and overrated. Let's see, Doctor, I'd rather play somebody else, and it's for like a really weird reason. I don't hate Doctor. He's kind of just like the quintessential M1 killer with some anti-loop and some free info. But the problem being is that I feel like Doctor's like really ping dependent. Like I was playing Doctor for a daily the other day, and we ended up on the wrong server. So I was on the wrong server, and if you guys aren't aware, if you're on the wrong server, everybody's around 100 ping, no matter how good your internet is, which sucks. I not static blasted, that's the other one. I shock therapied a Nia like 2 meters from a window vault. So she goes, ah! like she gets hit, and then she just runs up and vaults the window. I'm like, what the heck? What the heck? But, you know, on 100 ping, like, I guess the shock therapy was like, well, I guess that happened like a little too late for her to hit the window, even though she was 2 meters away. And I feel like a character that just like fundamentally changes based on ping, which is very iffy in Dead by Daylight. Even if you have like hardwired Ethernet fiber, like getting sent to the wrong server will give you like 120 ping, and then suddenly your power just doesn't work as well, which is just crazy work to deal with on the fly, which I just would rather not. I would just rather play somebody else. See, name of the category. Huntress, this was a character that I actually like. I main Huntress for a long time. Huntress was like my first true main, because like I started the game to play Myers, but the first character I like enjoyed, like not just playing for an IP, but like thoroughly loved and like learned to play, was Huntress. That was like my first true main in Dead by Daylight. I think I got frustrated with her after a long time, because like there's this thing, and I'm sure if you guys have played any range killer in Dead by Daylight that can't strafe, you've run into this problem, is that being random is counterplay to this killer, which I hate. I hate just wiggling your mouse around to get out of the way of the hatchet is counterplay, right? Like it just works. And I hate the idea of somebody just wiggling their mouse, just completely foregoing all of like the skill that I have attempted to gain over time, trying to invest time into this character, just somebody could go woo, and that's it, and then I miss my hatchet, right? And then then that ends up on the other end, where like you get all the Zontresses, and it's like I hate playing against Zontresses, but then I don't blame them, because like they're used to people doing that stuff, and it's just But coming full circle, I have been de-rusting my Huntress, and I find her really, really fun. She kind of scratches some itch that I have on Xenomorph, but also the ability to hit people far away. Like, I don't know, there's just something about this character that they have a relatively low skill floor, but an incredibly high skill ceiling. And they do have that kind of like pull off something crazy, like getting like a cross map, hitting somebody through a really small, narrow gap. Like there is some stuff that's really, really flashy about this character. I'm sure you guys have seen like Squirtle Surgeons videos where they're like two-tapping people. It's really cool. It's really, really cool. And as I'm de-rusting, I'm starting to love the character again. So I'm going to put him back in great time. I think I'm actually going to put him above Myers, which is pretty cool. Like I hard fell out of love with this character, but now I like them again, which is pretty cool. Bubba, I'm gonna put him at the bottom of okay. Bubba is still in a fairly weak state even after his quality of life changes. He's far more fun to play than he used to be, where bumping used to be so terrible. I think the problem and why he's just barely going to be an okay is because he still suffers from people just like playing safe as possible, which you can't really blame them for, because like chainsaw insta downs you. But like if you get a map that's pretty pallet dense, it's just run pre-drop, run pre-drop, run pre-drop, and it just kind of puts me to sleep. Also, without any like clear way to like have any sort of map mobility, if you get it like a bigger map like Azarov's resting place or like Iron the Shelter Woods, like no matter how good you play, it's gonna be hard for you to like consistently win games because you just don't have a way to get around. So he's okay. I will say that ever since Billy got like turbo buff to be a top 3, top 5 killer, he's kind of no longer the like play this character and people will love you character, which is probably another part of the reason I liked Billy a lot. It was like, even if I didn't have a good game, I knew people would enjoy facing my character, you know what I'm saying? So I was spreading joy either way. That's not really Billy anymore. I feel like a lot of that is coming down onto Bubba, which is nice. At least you know when you're playing a Bubba, a lot of people will get excited just to face a Bubba. So there's that. Let's see. Frederick Krieger. This is a weird one because like I'm posting this and in about a month he's gonna change, but but they said the changes aren't going to be as intense as people think they're going to be. Like it's not a full rework, they said. So let's see. I feel like rather somebody else. He is just at this point just one of the weakest characters in the game, at least at the end of 2024. He's still Freddy from the Nightmare on Elm Street series. He's the crappy 2010 version, but he is still Freddy, so he's a cool IP. That's kind of all he has going for him. Z-Block's pretty cool, but I'm kind of biased because the Xenomorph just has that power base kit that he has to run a purple add-on to do. Yeah, he's just... I understand that, like, Dream Freddy, where you had to put people in the dream world, was not very good. But, like, just turning him into a very, very generic killer with some anti-chase that's not even that good is just kind of like... I just don't get it. Like, they just gutted all the characters' creativity for the sake of making him functional, and the functionality didn't even end up being that good after they got rid of all the swing chains and stuff, and he ended up being one of the like weakest characters in the game. It's just like This should be one of like the most wild out there powers in the game, and he's just, I play snare. Now you're kind of slow, but you still make all your resources. I can teleport every 3 to 5 business days. Like, he's just such an underwhelming character. Like, he is next to the dictionary definition of underwhelming. So I'd rather play somebody else. At least his daily's easy. You just show up. Pig, I think Pig goes and rather play somebody else as well. This isn't really for strength issues. It's just like, I just don't find her tremendously fun. I think doing some of like the moon dash stuff can be interesting, which is why she's going to be fairly high up on rather somebody else. But I don't find her dash in most loops fairly helpful. Mostly because you have to full on crouch, full on do your little roar charge up, and then you start flying. So that gives the survivors a lot of time to react. The traps, while they have consistent value, it's kind of hard to get like a head pop or anything out of them, which makes sense from a balance perspective. But from a to play as perspective, it's like, I feel like just kind of like you're giving the survivor a chore and not like an actual threat, unless you're doing the really cringy sweatlord thing of like chasing them down and forcing the head pop, or running like a really mean scream build to constantly make them restart. So I don't know. I just wish this character had a little bit more to him. All right, Clown. This is my favorite M1 killing in the game. There's just something about like a yellow bottle here and purple bottle there. So I'm gonna be fast while you're slow, and trying to like get that to happen at the exact same time so I can just barely get the hit before you hit the powder window. There's something about like figuring it out in live time that makes the game kind of feel like a fun puzzle that I like really enjoy. I know there's like obviously meme videos out there of people doing this very incorrectly, which is really funny. But if you watch like Arnott and stuff and the way they play pallets, it's like super interesting. Like just barely getting that hit is so rewarding. And also you get that free agitation. So if you like skirt chokes, you can just always constantly throw a yellow bottle and have free agitation. Agitation is my favorite quality of life perk in the game. So just being able to just like subtly grant it to yourself as part of your base kit is really cool. And I really like that a lot. Clown's just fun. Okay, Spirit. Spirit's okay. Spirit's okay. She, like I mentioned earlier, it's one of those characters that's just like really good. I know she's been knocked down in a lot of people's tier lists lately, but in general, she's still like an amazing character. And I feel like I just, once again, kind of like I talked about with Billy, it feels like I'm just taking candy from the baby sometimes. It doesn't feel like I'm really like doing things because I'm skillful, but more because my character is just really strong. It's been pretty severe lately where like muffled sounds are just becoming silenced lately. That's just behaviors that, oh, there's a fix coming, don't worry, we know about it. And that just hasn't come yet to my knowledge. So that's pretty cool. I don't even know if that's still coming, but for a character that's entirely based around sound, that's really frustrating. Also, scratch marks break very often. Scratch marks are still spawning fairly later than they should, which makes tracking people pretty obnoxious. So for a character that's supposed to be tracking people without sight, every other option of tracking the survivor that isn't sight right now, it's just really buggy. So it just makes the character kind of really obnoxious to play. Also, there's the bug where you can hear your husk. I don't know. This character is just between the game and her, like there's just a lot of buggy stuff happening that just makes her typically not a great time. But she's like, I feel like out of like the characters that are like tippiest toppiest tier, she's not too unfun. All right, good old Legion, good old Legion. I think they're okay. Like they're not mechanically interesting at all, and they're really good at getting the injury, but not so much the down. I definitely feel like I'm in a lot of situations as Legion where I'm just like, man, M1 killers in this game are a pain to play. Like not having any sort of like true anti-chase ability is really rough in Dead by Daylight. Like it's extremely difficult to deal with. Also, this is one of those characters that like the counterplay to beat them is so incredibly easy. Like so incredibly easy. Like just splitting up is something that you should already be doing as Survivor anyways. So like if you just know how to play Survivor moderately okay, you just shut down this character's main power. So like as you guys will see, the higher you go in MMR, like the worse that gets, the more common that is. And it just feels like playing this character is just like abysmal. You're just like teenager with knife, and that's it. Plague, and this is gonna hurt a lot of people's feelings. So I know there's a ton of big Plague fans, but Plague is, yeah, I'd rather play somebody else. Plague, I feel like the problem for me with Plague is two main things. First, she's mostly macro play. Like most of her, like the way you succeed with Plague is macro play, like puking on things prematurely, or like trying to manage people staying sick throughout the entire game, so there's all one shot because they're all broken. Like, a lot of her gameplay is focused into the macro play, and micro play is kind of what I enjoy most about Dead by Daylight. So having quick efficient chases, doing some crazy cool hatchet at the last second to hit somebody, hitting a really long curve, stuff like that is kind of the things I enjoy in Dead by Daylight. So a character that's mostly focused around macro play is a little bit far away from my tastes. Also, you may be wondering, hey, but she has like the Corrupt Purge, which is like her like projectile attack. Wouldn't you enjoy that? Yeah, if I didn't constantly get phantom hits when I like vomited directly on a person and just flies through their leg and doesn't touch them for no reason at all. That happens like all the freaking time. I hate that. I also don't like in general that the both versions, the Vile and Corrupt Purge, travel at the speed of 3 to 5 business days. It takes like 13 years to get to the Survivor. I know there's an add-on for that, but like, dude, this is, I don't think she's weak. I will say that. In terms of objective strength, really, really good character. In terms of personal enjoyment, she grinds my gears. I'd rather play somebody else. Ghostface, once again, really cool IP, but like realistically, kind of a chore to play. When I was talking about earlier how like M1 killers really struggle in Dead by Daylight, and sometimes on certain killers you really feel it. I think Ghostface is like the definition of that, of where like, man, I really don't have any true anti-chase to speak of whatsoever. If people just get a pallet dense map and they just throw those pallets super early, like like what do I do? Like if I just get a moderately good map, I'm just like host. There are some really good Ghostfaces out there that tried to mitigate this problem, and kudos to them. But to me, this character is just like super frustrating to play. That, in addition to the fact that the reveal mechanic is so wonky, it's like I'm getting revealed behind corners on like like the opposite end, where like there's no way they would have any sort of line of sight on me, and suddenly I'm just like, and I'm like, what? There have been times where I'll hook somebody, go completely behind a wall, shroud, and get revealed. I'm like, I am behind the wall. You're on a hook like 5 meters away. How did you see me? It's so painful. It is so painful. Once again, like a lot of characters, like I mentioned with Bubba earlier, also no real map mobility. So if you get a map like Azerov's or Shelter Woods, you're gonna be running a marathon just to pressure anything, which is pain, absolute pain. He's one of the coolest stealth killers in the game though, so he's at the top of rather somebody else. So at least he has that going. Demo, I feel like the demo hate has gotten so like popular in the last couple of years, and it's kind of sad because Demo's like a pretty all right killer. I think I'll put him at the top of okay. He's not somebody I consider a great time or a super fun time, but like I'm down for a demo game. I think one of the things that like Demo is like the quintessential balance killer in the game. He's got anti-chase, but it's not super duper oppressive. He's got map mobility, but he's got to like set it up. He's like the quintessential balance killer, and that comes with both a positive connotation and a negative connotation. Because it's positive because like your matches feel mostly fair on both sides. Don't listen to DBD Twitter, they just cry too much. But in terms of like playing as him, it can be really difficult to pull off consistent wins because you are so balanced, because you are so average, that you really have to, feels like you got to pull out all the stops sometimes to really pull off something special with this character. So it can be kind of exhausting, which is why they're like, usually if you see somebody that's in a great time to favorite, usually they're going to be in my main rotation. Like you see me playing them just casually for fun, even if I'm not playing my main character. I like Demo a lot, but like he's exhausting to play because I feel like I'm fighting how average he is. So he's just going to be at the top of okay. Oni, I think Oni's a great time. I feel like he's going to be at the cusp of great time and okay. He's the thing I don't like about Oni is that he's kind of an all eggs in one basket kind of character. Because you like the big thing about Oni is that you get your blood economy going, and then you get into your power, and then in your power you could end the entire match in one fell swoop if the survivors are even remotely grouped up. But at the same time, if you have a use of your power and you don't get much out of it, you've been building the whole match to that use out of your power, and then if it just kind of goes by and you don't get a whole lot of downs, or you only get like one down, you don't really get that snowball going with your demon dash. It's like it feels really painful. So like while he's a really fun killer, I like doing the cool flicks and stuff. I like the kind of like the tension that builds up as you get closer to getting your power. It's super cool as people are wasting pallets and you're soaking up their blood. Just as much as you're like, wow, I could end this whole match in one fell swoop, it's also like I could also just like botch this use of the blood fury and just end up back at square one, which is really like anxiety inducing, that like, oh god, I gotta make the best of this, I gotta make the best of this, you know. So it kind of like is a double-edged sword of like, this is really cool, but it's also really stressful at the same time. Deathslinger is one of my favorites. I love Deathslinger so much. It's kind of like all the things I like about Huntress, of like getting those shots just barely around corners and sometimes through objects, except like all front loaded into the micro game and not the macro game. Of like, I can buy the collision box for Deathslinger, so like the hitbox that's used to avoid objects, is only 2 centimeters. So I can shoot through the boarded up the boards on the shack windows. I can shoot through like these tiny crevices on the hay bales. I can go for these really long flick shots. Like, this character just has so much pizzazz to them. It's really, really fun. It's really fun to watch Deathslinger compilations too, of them going for some crazy shots you didn't know were possible. And I think they're great. I think they're the closest thing to a secondary I have in the game, although my Huntress is starting to overtake him a little bit. But even if I don't play him for like an effectiveness reason, he's like really, really fun, because Deathslinger suffers as a 110 killer with no macro play, because like Huntress is also 110, but she can throw hatchets at people anywhere on the map theoretically. Deathslinger cannot. He's got that firm 18 meters on his harpoon. He's just flashier and more fun, and it's just like, the micro game, it's like if Huntress was all front loaded into the micro game, which, as I stated before, the micro game is my favorite thing about Dead by Daylight. So yeah, he's like made for me. Pyramid Head, I had a phase where I learned Pyramid Head. Pyramid's I'm gonna put him above Oni in the great time. Pyramid's typically a good time. He's got a lot of crazy flicks and cool flashy things he can do. Get some really, really wild shots. A lot of like prediction shots can be really, really shocking on this character. If you hit this fire, they're like, whoa, I can't believe you hit that. It's pretty fun. I think the problem is, once again, like a lot of killers I point out, like Bubba, it's like, he doesn't really have any map mobility to speak of. So if you're on a bigger map, you really, really start to feel that as Pyramid Head. And it's really, really painful. Also, there's almost kind of like this pseudo doctor effect where like, if the ping's slightly bad or you're on the wrong server, you'll have people like outright walking over your rights of judgment. Like, you'll see the red of the trail hitting them, but like they're walking over it, like they're running straight over it, and it's like a ping thing, and that can be extremely frustrating. I also like Silent Hill in general. Silent Hill is a really, really cool franchise, so I just like being able to play as Pyramid Head. So there's obviously some level of IP influence into why he's in great time as well. Blight's surprisingly a character that I've really come to enjoy, which is kind of weird considering the fact that, like, I was talking about earlier, like, really strong killers are kind of boring. And here I am with like the second best killer in the game. I'm like, nah, he's in a great time. I don't know, rush killers are just kind of like generally pretty fun, and I feel like he's got a lot of flashiness with like the kind of the flicks he can do. I actually enjoy him more now that the hug tech is gone, because I feel like the hug tech was kind of like overstated on how difficult it was. It really wasn't that difficult. You just kind of had to go, this object generally I won't bump on this, so I just hit once, look down, and slide across it. And it felt like he just kind of won a lot of like of the smaller tiles in the game for free. Now he doesn't have that, so it doesn't feel as much like you're taking candy from a baby while still like retaining the character's strength. Like, there's a lot of flashy fun stuff you can do with this character, and I honestly don't find myself missing the hug tech very much, and if anything, enjoying the character more because it's gone, because it feels more challenging in like a fun and intriguing sort of way. So yeah, I just randomly like Blight now. It's just like a weird thing that I've just been accepting. It's like, oh, this character's kind of fun now. I don't know why, but hey, there you go. Twins, I think, I don't know. I feel like it's somewhere in the cusp here. I'm trying to decide. I feel like I'm going to put them in actively dislike. I know it's going to hurt some people's feelings, because like twins players are like typically pretty sweet people who just like really enjoy their character a lot. But I feel like, especially somebody who played on the active release of Twins in one of the worst states that the game has ever seen, not only just for them, but for like the whole patch, they've just kind of consistently been in a really buggy state. Like, the last time I played this character, I got that one bug where like you switch out of Charlotte and you get stuck in like the vignette of the switch mode and you can't actually pounce or anything, and I had to like DC. It's just kind of like, I feel like I'm fighting the clunkiness of the character actively the entire time I'm playing them. Like, I know that Twins mains play the character and they get used to the clunkiness, they get used to the bugs, and they're just like, oh well, that's just part of the, you know, the song and dance of the character. But like, I could just play like most of the other part of the roster that functions normally. Like, like a lot of these characters have minor bugs or some bugs. They don't have a ton that I have to actively play around. Like, why am I still pouncing upstairs and dying? Like, why is that a thing? Like, legitimately, like, why am I actively pouncing upstairs and that's still an issue? Like, I just don't get it. And I feel like because there's like a good character beyond all the garbage that this character has to deal with, that people give them a pass. But realistically, it's like, I'm not going to give them a pass. Like, there's so many other characters in the game that function so much better that I feel like we're just giving behavior too much grace when it's like they've left this character in such a poor state, you know? And I'm not saying that they're unplayable or that they're weak. They're extremely good and extremely strong when they function. And when people get used to the bugs and can play around them or the general clunkiness, like, they're great. It's just that, like, I don't want to fight all that clunkiness. I do not. Trickster, I would put him in rather somebody else. They're just kind of in a weird state right now. Thankfully, they said they're going to revert all the stuff with Trickster soon and try to revert him to a better version of himself that existed before. But in his current state, he's just kind of like a main event machine, which is like not the reason I feel like people should be playing Trickster. Like, his name is literally the Trickster and he's throwing trick knives. So I feel like going for like really cool shots or rebounds with the purple add-on, with the trick blades, stuff like that, it should be like the focus of the character, not just like main eventing and mowing people down or main eventing and camping a hook, which is kind of like what he is now. So like I will probably raise his ranking more whenever that rework comes through that kind of airs more on the side of him doing trick shots and not so much him just being like a just throw a bajillion knives and profit, because it's just kind of like, even when it works, it's just kind of like so two-dimensional, it's not very interesting. The Nemesis is a great time. Yeah, I'll put him up there. Nemesis probably has a lot of overlap with the Xenomorph, which is probably why I like them all. Also, I like Resident Evil. Resident Evil is probably my favorite gaming franchise, so there's a lot of IP force behind that too. But strafing the tentacle whip is super fun, super cool. I think that having like one of the best like palette deletion abilities in the game is super fun too, because if you get one of those people that's like, I'm just gonna pre-drop and win, you're just like you're just like tearing through them. It's like, good luck. Try again. I will say that the zombies are fairly useless most of the time, and I wish that they had more utility to them, because it feels like even when you run the right add-ons, they just don't seem to do much, which is kind of a disappointing thing. But that's kind of it. Otherwise, they're just a good time generally. Pinhead, Pinhead's okay. I've never been a huge Pinhead enjoyer, which is kind of funny because I mod for Feel Ancient Reaper, who's like the best Pinhead main in the community. But I've just never been a huge Pinhead enjoyer. He just feels pub stompy at best, and then like clown with extra steps at worst. Because like either you're doing the box hunt and the bonks logic stuff and you're just absolutely deleting this solo queue team, like you're just taking candy from the baby, you're just walloping them, or you're facing like a good 4-man who has perfect box rotation, so all you have is your anti-chase ability, which is, like I said, just clown with extra steps. So you're kind of just a different clown. Which why not just play clown, who's more rewarding to play? It's just like, I feel like if I could summarize it, your experience on Pinhead is so varied, and in both ways that they're varied, they're not my ideal spot, right? I feel like the Pinhead matches I do enjoy are like when they're kind of rotating the box and my chains are on point that day, which realistically is not a very common scenario. Usually they're either on top of the box or not at all, which creates like a very weird situation. So I don't like the pub stompy nature of the killer. I feel like it's a little too easy breezy, and then when it's not easy breezy, it's horrible. you're on the opposite end of suffering. Artist, I think I actively dislike Artist. Once again, that's a thing that's going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, because Artist is like a fairly beloved killer by the very small player base that plays her, but like I just find her so boring. Like, either you're completely shutting down loops with the melee birds and leaving the survivors with no options, which doesn't feel like I'm really doing a lot to win besides just using my power to cheese the chase real quick, or I'm going for these really long, complicated bird shots, which like other characters can do with less setup. I feel like the main thing that actively keeps me away from Artist and makes me not want to play her, she's a character that you really have to like be like, you have to have them in your rotation to continue to be good with them. They're not really a plug and play killer, like literally at all. Like how I talked about, Wraith can be pretty chill because you could just play Wraith whenever. It doesn't take a lot to, you know, play Wraith, but Artist is one of those characters you cannot pick up and play. She's like the antithesis to plug and play. You just can't. Like, unless you know you have that like muscle memory to play this character well, if you lose that muscle memory, like you cannot play this character. You will get bodied every game. And it's just, I think that inaccessibility with her skill floor being, her skill floor being so high definitely makes me not want to play her. Sadako! I think I put her at the bottom of rather somebody else, at least for now. It's like Sadako is just so mechanically boring. Like she just, I don't really like trying to go for the condemned kill thing, because that's like, I feel like I'm juggling too much at the same time. And unless, once again, kind of like Artist, if you don't actively play this character, knowing how to get the most out of your condemned is really difficult. Also, no real anti-chase ability to speak of whatsoever. So if you get once again a good map for Survivor, you're just gonna like get walloped on. This is a character that they have just like drawn and quartered, for lack of a better term, because they just have reworked her so many times that I feel like she's kind of lost her identity a bit. Well, I think she's in a mostly unoffensive place to play against. I think to play as, she's kind of like so two-dimensional. She is so flat, and it's kind of sad to see considering how cool the IP is. Dredge, this is another one that's probably going to like upset people a fair bit. Dredge there and rather play somebody else. I don't find Dredge very interesting. There's an archetype of killer that I don't really enjoy to play as or against, which Artist is in, which is I'm going to put something at this side of the loop and then myself at the other side of the loop, and you just lose for free. that kind of play style I don't really enjoy, and any character that leans heavily into it, like with him with this Remnant, not really going to be a huge fan of, because it doesn't really feel like I'm like necessarily like doing something cool or skillful in the chase. I'm just kind of like, well, either you lose or you lose. And then you get to the opposite end with that same scenario, where like if you get a pallet dense map, like you try to set that up where you're like, okay, I'm gonna put the Remnant here and then me here, and then they just W away. They're just like, W key gone. And I hate W King. W King is one of the most boring things in Dead by Daylight, and I understand that's like the only option against a lot of these killers, but it's just not fun or interesting to play against. So a character that like that is the right and only counterplay option in a lot of scenarios, and forcing that situation that I don't enjoy being in a lot just doesn't seem sensible to me. Like, I don't want to put myself in that situation. The teleporting to lockers and stuff is cool. He's like very aesthetically a cool killer, but like gameplay wise, I'm not a big fan. Wesker's pretty fun. The Wesker like here. I think Wesker is a really clunky killer in a lot of ways. Like his power is very finicky. Like I was playing a Wesker game the other day on Eerie Crows, and you know that little like I don't know what it's called. It's like a little like atrium. It's a little sitting area. It's like right outside main building. It's got like the dome up top. It's like a little sitting area. I threw somebody straight into one of those poles of that sitting area, and it didn't count as a hit. Like she just stood up. Like I flung her, and I was like really close to it. So like I just barely started the throw. So she should have slapped it, but instead she just kind of like landed in front of it and stood straight up, and I'm like, why? What? So there's a lot of like really weird finicky stuff like that with Wesker, but like also he's a really flashy and fun killer. You can do like hug techs and stuff. You can do a lot of really fun like intentionally like bouncing on the first dash and then sliding across an object with the second. I like doing that a lot. He's a really, really fun killer. He's just one of those characters that unfortunately has a bit of jank to them, but usually it's like funny jank at least, and not like, oh my god, this is painful jank like with twins. You know? So also, once again, one of my favorite video gaming franchise, so there's also that. Sure, that's influencing things. Night, this is gonna hurt Pixie's feelings. Night, I'd rather play somebody else, but they're gonna be at the top. I'd rather play somebody else. Once again, like explained with Dredge and Artist, this is another one of those characters that's like, I'm gonna put this thing here, and I'm gonna put me here, and you are going to lose. I think that he is the most fun to play out of that archetype. I've not just from his cool ass aesthetic alone with his big armor and stuff. But he's still at the end of the day is I put thing here and you here, and now you lose. And I don't feel like pincering a survivor is necessarily a skillful thing. It's just kind of like, it's very easy to mess up, but it's also not too hard to pull off at the same time. I don't know, man. It's just like, I do like the macro aspect of Night, where you can kind of like use the guards to harass other people and chase multiple people at the same time. That's kind of fun. I get very excited when the guards actually get somebody like, yeah, you did it. It's like I'm cheering on my friends, you know? But once again, I still just don't feel very rewarded playing the killer. So I think that's a big thing for me, because I want to feel rewarded playing him, and I just kind of don't. Skull Merchant, I've never been a huge Skull Merchant enjoyer, but especially in her active state, I'm not a huge fan of her. I don't think anybody is. I think even people who main Skull Merchant aren't fans of Skull Merchant right now, because behavior by their own admission nuked her into the ground on purpose and said, we'll fix her later. So sometime in 2025, she will be in a playable state probably, but for right now, behavior has openly admitted that they wanted her to be unplayable until the next rework, and she is indeed almost unplayable. I do think that there's some appeal to her because she can't just cheese chases anymore, so there's a little bit more of you coming through in terms of skill expression, but because the current kit is so weak, you're not going to get much skill expression anyway. So I will probably never play this killer outside of build requests. Singularity is a character I enjoy quite a bit, actually, which is kind of funny, because in the play against tier list that I released a little bit ago, this was a character I didn't enjoy facing. So usually those go hand in hand. Usually if I don't enjoy facing a killer, I don't enjoy playing as them, but Singularity is kind of like the biggest separation with that, because I actually enjoy playing Singularity a lot. There's something about setting up the web of biopods to keep an eye on everything in a macro sense, to very quickly slipstreaming people. I know there's an ability now to auto lock people, but I don't use it because locking onto people and getting that slipstream last second is part of the fun of the character, so I don't do it. But I don't know, it's just a really fun killer. I know they're kind of bulldozy, but so being on the one end of a bulldoze is not fun, but being the bulldozer is actually really fun. Obviously the Xenomorph, obviously my favorite character in the game, you know, top stat, wrote the character, all that wonderful stuff. I wrote the character, I wrote the guide for the character, I didn't write the character, I don't work at behavior. Like, what else is there to say? Like, this is a tale as old as time for me. AVP, Alien vs Predator, the first horror movie I ever got to watch start to finish. Started my love for horror in general. This is the character that got me into this, and there, ergo, all of the Dead by Daylight stuff. I have this guy to thank. Like, they're also like super duper fun. Getting the flashy tail text that I can make compilations out of, super awesome and amazing. Like, I know a lot of people hate the Xenomorph both as and against, and I can never be me. It can never be me. They can never force me to hate you. I love you so much. Chucky's undergone a massive transformation in one just hotfix patch where they just randomly nerfed them into the dirt, made him a BC tier killer. They're okay. Yeah. I do like Chuck spotting people. Chuck spotting people is pretty funny. I'm just gonna move Bubba up too. Yeah, that's a fair place for them. They're okay. Like, they're fairly weak now, so I have a little bit less of that feeling of like I'm kind of like, you know, winning because of my character. Like I said, I do get a very big giggle when I chuck spot people when I'm like hiding my little guy and they can't see me and they just run straight into me. It's pretty funny. But the slowest molasses slice and dice now is extremely painful, especially considering you're a 110 melee killer, which is awful, absolutely awful. Like I was talking about with some other killers of like playing on bigger maps could be painful, and they're 115. Much less playing a 110 killer that has no range capabilities and trying to get around a huge map. Like that's agony. It was agony before the nerf. At least his chases were super quick before the nerf, so he could kind of make up for it. Now he doesn't even have that. Now his chases are about as average as any like M2 killer. So it's just like, I don't know. Like, I don't know why they just like hate Chucky so much. Like, like there was like, I forget, Ghost said it once, Ghost Anonymous, who's a very, very good Chucky, was like, they have only buffed Chucky like once, but he's been in almost every patch since his release. It was something like that, which is crazy. Like, the behavior's been trying to put the little guy down. They're trying to hurt the good guy, and I feel like they finally succeeded. They finally severely hurt the good guy, which is kind of sad. I feel bad for the Chucky mains out there. Unknown, this is gonna be a surprise, because this kind of has been changing over the past couple months since I've been playing them a bit more. I think that Unknown is kind of creeping into okay. I think they're fine. I feel like I'm finally starting to get over my hump of like personally not getting Unknown. I think the big thing is like I just let go of the idea that I have a lot of control over this character, which is funny because like that was one of my big gripes. It's just like I just don't connect with them. Like I don't get how their power works. It seems fairly random. And I was talking to a lot of other Unknown mains who enjoy and love this character. They're like, yeah, it doesn't make sense, but like it's funny. Like they're like, yeah, we know. Sometimes you shoot it straight at a corner and it bounces, which is not supposed to happen because it's supposed to insta collide and pop. But sometimes UVX doesn't do that. Sometimes you shoot the UVX straight at a rock and it should bounce forward, but it bounces to the left just because it feels like it. And I'm like, how do you enjoy that? How does that happen to you? You don't get angry. It's like, well, it's funny. And once I started stop taking it so seriously and stop trying to play efficiently as this character all the time and just go for funny stuff, like it's actually been pretty fun. Like some of the shots I get is pretty wild and pretty exciting. And I'm starting to get it, which is why they're only an okay, because I feel like we'll eventually continue to creep up this tier list. But for now, at the end of 2024, I'm starting to get it. So we'll put you in okay. You're moving up, Unknown. You're creeping up on me. But I'm starting to see the vision of just like wacky zany, but that's the point. Vecna, I enjoy Vecna a lot. Vecna is kind of like a double-edged sword for me because Vecna is kind of flowcharty, which is both a positive and a negative. It's like the spells are good in specific situations, and it's almost like a knowledge check of like, okay, well, this certain scenario is happening, which spell goes good here? Like, for example, if there's like, I was playing on Swamp the other day, which has a map with a lot of elevation, having the time of my life with the Fly to the Damned, with the little Skeleboys, I was getting so many hits, it was so hilarious. Also, putting the Skeleboys directly on top of people is also a skill thing, which is also really funny. It's just plopping them on them. It's hilarious. But also at the same time, that's kind of boring, isn't it? Like every single match where there's elevation, you're doing the same thing at the exact same spots every single time. Because it's just good and it's what you should do. It's how you use those spells correctly. But because the scenarios where you use them are always uniform, every match plays out fairly similarly when you're playing this killer. So it's like, it's fun, but it's so repetitive that like I can't see myself maining the character or having them in an average rotation or like a normal rotation, because I feel like I would get bored of them fairly quickly. Dracula, good old Dracula. Dracula I like a lot. Do I like him that much? I think I like him that much. Dracula's a character that's kind of snuck up on me a bit because the Hellfire I found so infuriating. Like Hellfire I found to be so draining and so frustrating as a power. But once I realized that Hellfire just sucks, and then Behavior has told us, hey, Hellfire sucks by continually nerfing the ability. They're like, hey, we as the developers don't want you using this power very much. I started using Wolf form more and Bat form more. And I'm like, oh, I see. This is the bread and butter of the character. Once I kind of made peace and kind of started to let go of wanting Hellfire to work all the time, using Hellfire as my main power, because it's very like tail attack coded in the way it works. So like obviously my brain was like, oh, I want to do that. But most of this character's power is front loaded into Wolf form, and Wolf form is pretty fun. And now that I'm starting to like do those things more, character's actually really, really fun. So I like Dracula now. It's pretty cool. Also, the True form has one of the best Moris in the game. that is, and especially since we have base kit Cypress now, I get to see it so much. It's so cool. It's so neat. Now for the latest character, now that she's been hot fixed a fair bit, the Houndmaster. Good old Portia. A hard one. I want to put her in okay, but I feel like I enjoy her a little bit more than that. I'm gonna put her at the bottom of a great time for now because she's still a character work in progress. I think that she's equally a very fun but also very frustrating killer. Not as much as when she first released and she was almost as broken as released twins. But like when she works, she's really, really fun. Like sending the dog through a window or over a pallet to hit somebody, or forcing somebody to drop a pallet and then sending the dog over to hit them, forcing people into like a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation, like sending the dog around one way and you go around the other. She just has a lot of complexity to her that I enjoy, and it feels like a character that like once she gets unkill switched in the Bone Chill event, if that'll ever happen, I'm gonna like enjoy trying to learn this character, just like find this character's skill curve and try to learn all the things I can do. I will say, however, she's still extremely buggy. Like she's not like broken buggy like she wasn't released, but she's almost like, she's not twins levels of buggy, but she's, compared to a lot of killers in the game, fairly buggy, and in general just clunky. Like there's a lot of times where the dog path that you set when you go to like point at something is just completely inaccurate. Like either they get stuck on something or they don't actually go the way that it told you the dog was gonna go, and it creates a lot of like really frustrating situations. Sometimes like you'll get a lineup on someone and then the dog is just so slow that they just don't reach them in time. The dog is also fairly dodgeable, so you kind of have that Huntress thing of like I was talking about earlier, if somebody just like wiggles back and forth, they can easily dodge the dog, and that can be frustrating. So like that's why she's kind of like at the bottom of her great time, because like I feel like it's also like the character's been out for a little bit now, but there's just some things where like people are wanting to play against them, and the counterplay can be fairly annoying, and there's still some clunkiness despite the hot fixes. But like when she's working fine and she's not being clunky, she's extremely fun. I definitely see the vision. Well, I think that's gonna be it for the fun to play as tier list. There's some surprises here. I feel like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting for me. I said this a little bit in the play as or play against video, is like I feel like my mentality with the game is so much more healthy than it used to be, because if you look, most people are like in this like good zone. Like most characters are in B or A tier. Like I enjoy most of the roster, which is really, really cool, because I feel like you guys have been around the channel for years and years. I used to be kind of a negative Nancy. Used to just kind of be like, everything's broken, everything's bad, I can't believe Behavior did all these bad things. Used to just complain nonstop. So to have me just make a tier list of enjoyment on both the play as and against, and see most of the characters in a higher tier, is pretty exciting and pretty cool. There's way less than the active dislike than I thought there would be, and one of them is like an accessibility thing, so it's not really like, I don't know if I should even count that. That should probably be its own tier realistically. Yeah, I love a lot of characters in this game, and I feel like in general they've made the killer role far more enjoyable to play. So I think it's reflected in seeing so many more enjoyable characters to play, from my perspective. So yeah, but that's going to be it for today's video, friends. What picks on here shocked you, and which picks are you actually in agreement with? Let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, that's it. That's all. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Hopefully I made your day a little bit better. However, I will see you in the next video. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.